Well, thank you, Trevor, for that wonderful welcome and introduction to this evening. I'm Jonathan Boston. I'm the Director of the Institute for Governance and Policy Studies at Victoria University, and I had the pleasure of chairing the advisory group that oversaw the production of this volume that we launched tonight. Most of us here this evening are remarkably fortunate, certainly in material terms. Most of us earn substantial incomes or were blessed with regular and adequate incomes during our working lives. Or perhaps in some cases, we've inherited significant fortunes. For most of us, the past few decades in this country have been relatively good, at least in terms of our personal incomes, wealth, and well-being. Many of us were also fortunate as young people to receive a free compulsory education and a free tertiary education, as well as relatively cheap healthcare and secure, affordable housing. We were brought up when New Zealand was truly a great place for most of our children and where egalitarian values were celebrated. We now live in the shadow of this former era. Indeed, we live in a different country. New Zealand today exhibits much starker contrast between rich and poor. Many families struggle to satisfy their basic human needs. Many people endure chronic ill health due to poverty, inadequate housing, and overcrowding. And a substantial proportion of our children suffer significant material deprivation, sometimes for much of their childhood. If a society is to be judged on the basis of how it treats its least advantaged and most vulnerable citizens, then New Zealand is not doing very well. We are far from being a good and decent society. This is not as it ought to be, nor is it how it should be. It need not be this way. New Zealand's experience, of course, is not unique. Across much of the developed world, inequalities of wealth and income have increased substantially since the 1980s. In recent years, this has sparked growing international concern. Large income disparities pose serious economic and political risks, undermine social cohesion, and raise acute ethical challenges. They also mar the tone and damage the fabric of a society to the detriment of everyone, wealthy and poor alike, as Trevor has commented on. Our humanity is impaired and corrupted in subtle yet significant ways by vast differences in wealth and opportunities. We risk losing any sense of the common good or sharing a common life. Highlighting this, an analysis of global risks prepared for the World Economic Forum in Davos in January this year identified, I quote, severe income disparity as the greatest threat facing the world economy. This assessment was not based on the views of anti-capitalist or anti-globalization radicals. It was the result of a survey of over 1,000 experts drawn from industry, government, academia, and civil society. In other words, the global policy elite. Likewise, the OECD claims that income inequality threatens global economic growth, and that ignoring it is, I quote, not an option. Further, the World Health Organization has initiated a major drive to tackle inequalities linked to the adverse effects of inequality on public health. Meanwhile, as many of you will be aware, a number of major publications have attracted global attention, like Richard Wilkinson and Kate Pickett's book, The Spirit Level, and Joseph Stiglitz's more recent volume, The Price of Inequality. Well, the book being launched tonight represents a contribution to this wider international debate, albeit with a strong New Zealand focus. It is designed to stimulate a broad-ranging conversation in this country about our future, and in particular, about what constitutes a just and good society, one that is not only successful in material terms, but also humane and compassionate. Of course, this is not the first local publication to address issues of inequality. Various policy advisors, academics, journalists, and other commentators, many of you here tonight, have been engaged with such issues over many years. But this book represents the first endeavour to adopt a holistic approach, bringing together a range of ethical perspectives and empirical evidence, and responding to the specific challenges, indeed crisis, we face today. Appropriately, therefore, it engages with the nature, causes and consequences of inequality, especially income inequality, and advances practical proposals and policy ideas for building a less unequal and less divided nation. On behalf of the members of the advisory group who oversaw the preparation of this book, I would like to thank very much the contributors, a large number who are here tonight, for their commitment, their expertise and their passion. But above all, I'd like to pay tribute to the enormous efforts of the editor, Max Rashbrook, and the dedicated staff of Bridget Williams Books, particularly Tom Rennie and of course Bridget Williams. As citizens of this nation, a nation which needs to be fairer, we owe these people a great debt. Thank you very much.